The doorbell rang, and I hesitated for a moment before making my way to the front door. It had been months since I last spoke to Emily, and the sound of her voice on the other end of the line had caught me off guard. She was standing there, looking older but still as beautiful as ever, with a suitcase in one hand and an uncertain expression on her face. "Can I come in?" she asked softly, her eyes pleading. I stepped aside, allowing her to enter. The house felt colder, emptier than it had in years. We sat down in the living room, the silence between us heavy with the weight of unspoken words. "I didn't know where else to go," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. He wasn't good to me." I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I heard." She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "Do you hate me?" "No," I replied, forcing myself to meet her gaze. "But things have changed, Emily. We're not the same people we were when we got divorced." She bit her lip, nodding slowly. "I know, but maybe we can find our way back to each other, if you give me a chance." I took a deep breath, unsure of what to say next. The pain of our past still lingered, but so did the memories of the love we once shared. "Why should I?" I finally asked, my voice steady. She reached out, taking my hand in hers. "Because I made a mistake. Because I still love you." I felt a shiver run through me at her touch. Her fingers were warm, familiar, and it was hard to remember why we had ever let each other go. But I knew better than to make hasty decisions. "This isn't going to be easy," I warned her. "We both need time to heal." She nodded, her grip tightening on my hand. "I understand, but I'm willing to try. For us." I looked into her eyes, seeing the determination there. Maybe she was right. Maybe we could find our way back to each other if we were willing to put in the effort. "All right," I said softly. "Let's see where this takes us." She smiled then, a small, hopeful smile that made my heart ache. "Thank you," she whispered. We sat there for a while longer, just holding hands and letting the silence fill the space between us. It was a start, a fragile beginning to what could be a second chance at love. But the road ahead was uncertain, and neither of us knew what lay in store. "So," she began, her voice hesitant, "what do we do now?" I shrugged, trying to keep my tone light. "We take it one day at a time, I suppose." She nodded, her eyes searching mine. "And what about tonight? Do you want me to stay?" I hesitated, knowing how much more complicated things would become if she stayed. But I also knew that part of me wanted nothing more than to hold her close, to feel her warmth against me once again. "Yes," I said finally, "you can stay." She let out a breath she had been holding, relief washing over her features. "Thank you," she murmured, leaning in closer. I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her into a tight embrace. She fit perfectly against me, just like she always had, and I closed my eyes, savoring the feeling of having her back in my arms. "I missed you so much," she whispered against my neck, her breath warm and comforting. "I missed you too," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. We stayed like that for a long time, simply holding each other and letting the past fade away. It was a tentative truce, a rekindling of the bond we had once shared. But as the night wore on, doubts began to surface. What if this was just a temporary fix? What if we couldn't overcome the hurt and betrayal that had torn us apart? Do you really think we can make this work? She asked suddenly, pulling back slightly to look at me. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I don't know, Emily. All I know is that I want to try. For both of us. She nodded, her expression resolute. Then let's try. Together. I leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Together. I echoed, hoping that we could find our way back to each other. As the night deepened, we moved towards the bedroom, unsure of what the future held but determined to face it together. The bed creaked slightly as we settled onto it, and I wrapped my arms around her, feeling her body relax against mine. I love you, she murmured, her voice soft and sleepy. I love you too, I replied, pressing another kiss to her temple. As we drifted off to sleep, I could. The clock on the mantelpiece ticked loudly in the quiet room, each second a reminder of the fragile peace that had settled over them. Emily lay on the couch, her breathing slow and steady as she slept. The narrator sat in an armchair nearby, watching her, the past and present warring within him. A sudden knock at the door shattered the stillness. The sound was jarring, like a discordant note in a symphony. Emily stirred but did not wake. The narrator hesitated for a moment before rising to his feet. He moved cautiously to the door, peering through the peephole. A tall man with a stern expression stood on the porch, his fists clenched. It was Mark, Emily's current partner. The narrator opened the door slowly, trying to mask his surprise. "Mark, what are you doing here?" he asked, keeping his voice low so as not to wake Emily. Mark pushed his way inside without answering, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on Emily. He strode towards her, anger simmering in his gaze. "Emily! Get up!" he demanded, his voice rough. Emily jolted awake, confusion clouding her features. She blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of the scene before her. "Mark? What's going on? You tell me," Mark said, his tone accusatory. "I come home and find you gone. You think you can just run off to him? After everything?" The narrator interjected, stepping between them. "Mark, this isn't how you talk to her. Whatever problems you two have, you don't need to take it out on her." Mark glared at the narrator, his nostrils flaring. "Stay out of this. This is between me and her." Emily rose from the couch, her hands trembling slightly. "Mark, please. Just go home. We can talk about this later." "No, we're talking about it now," Mark snapped. "Why are you here? What do you want from him?" Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, but she held her ground. "I came here because I needed a place to stay. My relationship with you, it's not working. And I needed some space." Mark's face contorted with rage. "Space? You think running to your ex-husband is the answer? You think he'll take you back after what you did?" The narrator felt a pang of guilt and resentment. He wanted to defend Emily, to protect her from Mark's wrath, but he knew he couldn't deny the truth of Mark's words. They had both made mistakes, and the scars of their past remained. "Mark, you need to leave," the narrator said firmly. "This isn't helping anyone." Mark's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the narrator thought he might strike him. But then Mark turned his attention back to Emily, his voice softening slightly. "Come home with me, Emily. Let's work this out. Together. Emily looked torn, her heartache palpable. I don't know if I can, Mark. I need time to think. Mark's expression hardened again. Time? Time for what? For him to convince you to take him back? The narrator stepped forward, placing a hand on Emily's shoulder. Mark, you're not listening. Emily needs to figure things out for herself. You can't force this. Mark's gaze shifted between the two of them, his anger giving way to something more complex. He took a step back, his voice quieter but no less intense. Fine. But don't think this is over. I'm not letting you go, Emily. Not like this. With that, Mark turned and stormed out of the house, the door slamming shut behind him. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken questions and lingering tension. Emily sank back onto the couch, her tears finally escaping. The narrator sat beside her, offering a silent comfort. He gently wiped away her tears with his thumb, the touch tender and familiar. Are you okay? He asked softly. Emily nodded, though her breath hitched. Yes. No. I don't know, she admitted. This is all too much. The narrator cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his gaze. We'll figure it out, Emily. Together. She leaned into his touch, her eyes searching his. Can we really? After everything we've been through, is there still a chance for us? The narrator hesitated, the weight of their history pressing down on him. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw the same love that had once fueled their connection. It was battered and bruised, but not completely extinguished. I don't know, he confessed. But I want to try. For you. For us. Emily's lips trembled as she reached up to caress his cheek. I want to try too. Their lips met in a tentative kiss, a hesitant rekindling of the passion they had once shared. It was soft, almost questioning, as if testing the waters of their newfound resolve. The taste of her lips was bittersweet, a reminder of the pain and joy they had experienced together. As the kiss deepened, the hesitancy melted away, replaced by a desperate yearning. The narrator's hands slid down to her waist, pulling her closer. Emily's fingers tangled in his hair, urging him nearer. The world outside ceased to exist, leaving only the two of them locked in a desperate embrace. Their clothes seemed to fall away effortlessly, each piece discarded in the heat of the moment. The coolness of the air against their skin contrasted with the warmth of their bodies pressed together. The scent of her perfume mingled with the faint tang of sweat, creating an intoxicating aroma that heightened their senses. Emily's hands roamed over his chest, mapping the contours of his body with a familiarity that sent shivers down his spine. The narrator groaned softly, the sound muffled against her neck as he nuzzled the sensitive skin there. His hands explored her curves, relishing the smoothness of her skin and the swell of her breasts. They moved in tandem, finding a rhythm that spoke of years of intimacy. Each thrust, each moan, each gasp was a testament to the depth of their connection. The bed creaked beneath them, a rhythmic accompaniment to their passionate dance. Emily's nails dug into his back, drawing blood in her urgency. The narrator reveled in the sensation, the sting merging with the pleasure coursing through him. Their breaths mingled, hot and ragged, as they climbed towards the peak of their desire. Just as they were about to reach the pinnacle, a noise from outside the bedroom door jolted them back to reality.